Okay, so it's 9:45. I think we should start. There is no moderation for this session, so well, I need to do that. Welcome to the second day of the ALM Summit. This is one session, part of the business transformation track that we have. We have 5 sessions in this track. I start here providing you an overview of this transformation suite approach we have. My name is Frank Kühn. I'm from the ALM Product Management, working in Mark's team, and my current role is I'm area product owner for Focus Build, but since beginning of the year, I'm also working in a project together with the Signavio colleagues on this transformation suite approach. So that's my pleasure now to show you this overview. Okay, then some housekeeping. As always, when you use social media, use the hashtag ALM Summit that we can find it easily. And then as I show you something about vision, and mostly vision in my session, also the disclaimer that the vision might change at any time, as always. And then let's have a short look on the agenda. So in the next 40 to 45 minutes, I will give a little introduction on what is business transformation, and then I do, I would say not deep dive, but go at least 1 or 2 levels deeper than Mark did in his keynote on the transformation suite approach, on the vision where we want to go to, and then finally also where are we today, and this is then also bridging to our next sessions that we have in this track. Okay, well, while preparing this session, I was thinking, what is something I can bring easily in relation with business transformation? And then at home I found a small piece. It's this one here. Maybe the younger people here don't know anymore. Well, it's a mobile phone. It's not a smartphone. And it's from Nokia. And Nokia, at the time I bought this thing, it was in 2000, the time when I started at SAP around, they were a market leader, or one of the market leaders in the mobile phone area. And today, well, the name is still there, but they do not exist anymore. And the problem is they did not adapt to this smartphone revolution that happened over the time in the 2000s. And they missed to transform their business to really stay in the business. So at the end, this is also then bringing me to the first point of what are the needs for a customer to do business transformation. So they really need to make their enterprise that they are agile, they can adapt to the market situation, to competitors, that they really stay in business. This is one part. Second thing is about supply chain resilience. Think about, car industry in Germany. Well, it showed easy in the pandemic when there was the problem that there was a lockdown in China, chip industry did not produce the silicon chips. Well, the German could not produce cars anymore because the supply chain was broken. Another simple or small disruption was Suez Channel blocked by a container ship for 6 days. It was queuing up hundreds of ships, causing the global supply chain to have an issue here. So also resilience in that is important. And finally, sustainability in these days getting more and more important. We have more restrictions or regulations from the government, from European Union. The companies need to apply to that, otherwise they pay fines. End users take more care on, do I buy a sustainable product? So these are the important facts why business transformation is important. Now, what are the 4 ingredients for those who really successfully transformed? And the first point is business strategy. Well, business strategies, this is the whole starting point of the transformation where, as Mark explained, either you buy McKinsey or EY, or we learned yesterday also from Deutsche Bahn that the strategy can also be given by the government, what they need to do. But at the end, it leads to the fact that, the strategy is in a way to be agile, resilient, and so on. Well, strategy is one factor. Then from strategy, we go over to translate strategy into capabilities, these into processes. So processes is an important fact there. You make sure that we get customer value, that they need to be, oh, I've lost it. They need to be reliable, they need to be scalable. It really needs support the customer. And then coming to solutions, well, you want to take there also, latest technologies. You need to be flexible in regards of extensibility. Well, in the SAP world, we have there our core with S4. We have the business technology platform where you can build extensions. So there you need to be really flexible. And the fourth thing, it doesn't work without the people. If you don't take the people with you in the transformation, the whole thing will not work. Small thing also in our focus build world. If you don't take the people in the project with you, the whole thing will not work. So people is very important. Now let's have a look to transformation scenarios. What different types, so one level deeper, what different transformation scenarios do we have? And there we can differentiate in 3 different things. One and the other is the extreme. So really a solution-driven transformation is, let's assume, well, your ECC is running out of maintenance. You have the need to upgrade to S4. So it's really solution-driven, and you just do an upgrade. You reuse the processes, most of them as they are. There are small parts where you need to do really a rethink, because in S4 these processes do not exist. You need to go for HR, maybe to success factors. So this is the one extreme. Then there's something in the middle where you really do selective transformation. Some of the processes you already want to optimize during this transformation. And finally, a complete process-driven approach where it's kind of greenfield. You want to rediscuss all your processes, optimize as much as possible with this transformation project to get there. Okay, but this is now, how do we come to continuous transformation? Let's say we have a starting point, legacy, ECC, whatever, and in the first step you go to S4. And there we have then, as explained before, either solution-driven or process-driven. Reality normally is something in between. With your initial leap, you get to S4. But this is not the end of your transformation, because at the end, what you want to reach is that all processes are optimized, and this is then your North Star, what you want to reach. And this is then not just another step. This is really a continuous transformation in iterations where you need to get there. So that's really why we have at the end a continuous transformation and not just a one-stop transformation where you end up with the optimized processes. Now coming to our big picture, what Mark showed you also yesterday with the 4 products here, with LeanIX for enterprise architecture, Signavio with their business process suite, then Cloud ALM with the application lifecycle management, and for the people enablement we have Enable Now, built-in support. So we have these 4 boxes. Well, LeanIX fits perfectly in. It was already before a partner for Signavio. Now we want to buy LeanIX, so into this storyline of a transformation suite approach, this fits perfectly. And also LeanIX, its capability here on the slide, but they are not restricted to capability handling. They are really a complete enterprise architecture suite where you really can start translating from strategy into capabilities. Also doing your architecture planning, also risk analysis, what are the impacts if you change a certain system. All this is in, and also Oliver will explain you a little bit more in the dedicated LeanIX session. Well, then from capability, we come into our capabilities. We need to break down into really the process world. There we have then Signavio, and once the process is designed, we go into SAP Cloud ALM to implement it in a solution. And finally, we need to enable the people to take them with us. So looks easy, but just integrating or do some integrations between the things is maybe one step too short, and we need to think a bit further on the vision, on what do we want to achieve here. And our vision is really to have or to manage this business transformation really with one integrated approach from strategy to execution, with one consistent methodology, which also means one consistent data model and one process, and also finally as well the tools of LeanIX, Signavio, Cloud ALM is not the whole world. There's much more around in the ecosystem. We need to have a complete integrated tool chain here. And now in the following we go into the different sections, and let's take that one level deeper, also explaining you a little bit where are the problems, because on high level everything looks nice and easy. Reality is always a little bit more tricky, I would say. Okay, well, first slide here. On this one you can basically explain everything from strategy to execution. All buzzwords are there, like you support it with AI. But let's start on the left-hand side. Really starting from strategy, you break it down into what capabilities do I need to execute this strategy. And then in enterprise architecture, you plan based on this, what will be your future architecture of your overall solution, and then you plan it in a roadmap, which systems you basically change when, that you can go forward here. And then when you come into the process world where you say, okay, now I need to really implement this process or design the processes, and there we come then into Signavio where we say, okay, let's do the design, and then once it's designed, we go into the implementation part where SAP Cloud ALM will provide you everything you need with the build capabilities. We then test the whole thing. We can deploy. Also here deployment and deployment orchestration is getting more and more important, thinking about having extensions on BTP, and you need to orchestrate that with your backend system. So a lot of important functionalities we have on ALM side. Then we set it live. We can operate it, monitor it, and then finally, we also need to make sure that we enable the people, as said before. We need to take the people with us. And then this first loop ended, and we come into the second iteration in, well, we need to see how is this new process behaving. We analyze it. We can, well, enhance. Enhance means here more automation, but if you really want to transform, you would need to adapt also the process and do a little redesign. Okay, so this is this endless loop where you end up with your continuous transformation. Just another picture on that. Now, how we want to connect process and solution, or the overall thing here. Well, let's have a look on the capability view. So on LeanIX side, we do enterprise architecture, just as one thing clear. Then in Signavio, we do business architecture, we can do process analysis, we design the process. So these are sort of the main capabilities we do in Signavio. Forgive me if I forgot some of them. About Cloud ALM, I would say much more, but we have here solution design, we build the solution, we can test it, we have all the deployment capabilities, and finally also we can operate the solution. And on top, for sure, we need to enable the end users. Now, what's the problem in that picture? If you talk to customers, there's always the problem. The business guy, they talk to the Signavio side, and they just paint then their BPMNs and are happy with that. And then if you come later on to the solution design, it's more, well, the IT guys talk to the solution experts, design the process there, and at the end, sometimes IT and business are talking different things. And the question is, how do we bring that together? And in the vision is, and also in the methodology we are working on, we want to bring really the process design and the solution design together in one thing, and that we have only one process, which is really the one single source of truth for the process. So that's why we need one process. Let's have a look a little bit on the entities in the different systems. On LeanIX, we have, well, the capabilities, yes. Also capabilities need to be linked to the one process. There we have applications, to know what's there. Also this we link. This helps us then to do this kind of, well, analysis later on. Well, if I would need to change a certain system, which capabilities are impacted, which processes are impacted. So also there, this linkage really helps a lot. Well, on LeanIX side, you drive these things as initiatives. Also there in the future, we can think of, well, using projects in SAP Cloud ALM to drive these initiatives, because we have really a good project management there. And then we have the different entities in Signavio side, like, well, process governance, which is at the moment this workflow component in Signavio, where you can define, okay, that processes need to be approved. Only certain users can do localizations for processes, things like that. The next one is, well, risk and controls, where you can assign risk or identify risks for your business processes, assign that to the process, and that you can really do risk analysis, keep your risks then also under control with that entity. And then we have business decisions, where you can use functionality in Signavio to say, okay, there's a certain business decision, how a process needs to run, and this can be supported here via this business decision part. Another important thing here, key performance indicators, process performance indicators, in order to monitor your processes, also find out the areas where you can improve. It's a quite important one. And then we have also value drivers, where you can say, okay, in these processes, this is really the value area where the value is generated. And this you can then also later on use when you optimize processes to identify those areas where you can really get most out of the changes. Okay, and the right side, I think I need to make a bit faster. This is all known as we are in the ALM Summit. We have business requirements, for sure they need to be assigned to the process. We have all the solution documentation part. Also here, we need to know which process it is. Also thinking about interfaces, executable data objects, although they are not yet there, they are needed, because at the end, later on for testing, this is also important. Coming to that in a second. Well, all the solution changes we currently track in features, but overall, keeping track of all your solution changes is important. Testing, for sure. Also, this then helps. And one learning I had in the last months when talking to the big customers, well, the test effort when you do a transformation, well, it is one of the biggest efforts you have. And the better you can already at the beginning analyze on what is my test impact if I do this and this change, is very valuable. And this you can only achieve when you really have the complete linkage in here. And finally, the as-is solution, just an example, if you know which system is exactly for this process and you know which executable is used there, then for testing you can directly jump into the Fiori that you want to test. Well, that's why all this information needs to be really bundled in this one process, and not forget the people on top with the enablement content. Okay, well, back to the overview. Well, this was a little bit this integrated approach. Why do we need this one process here? Now let's have a deeper look into our one consistent methodology. Well, Mark also showed that yesterday. Bottom line, you have here the SAP Activate phases. If you see that, it's no rocket science. It's what I explained before. It's really, you start from business strategy, you do your business solution architecture with Signavio, LeanIX, and then, well, for sure, if you have already processes running, you can do your as-is process analysis. There, Signavio has now also nice functionalities like this plug and gain approach, where they take the output from the process insights and bring that output into the process intelligence. Thank you. And then it goes over to, okay, now depending on what kind of process we are thinking about, is it a differentiating process? Well, then maybe you start really painting on a white sheet of paper that we really have a differentiating process for your business. Or if it's a commodity process, well, then the idea is really to go as close as possible to standard to keep all the TCO as low as possible. And there we start then with best practice content, do a fit to standard workshop where we define our requirements out of that. And once then process is approved, requirements are defined, we go then really into the implementation or the build realize phase here, where we have all the capabilities of Cloud ALM to manage your project agile. You do the configuration or developments. Later on, you need to make sure that everything is correctly tested, where we have really good manual test capabilities directly in Cloud ALM. We have connections to test automation like Tricentis you can utilize there. And then the people enablement before you finally really manage your go live. And then you are in the run phase. Your new process is live, you need to operate it. But as said before, while we are in a continuous transformation, this is not the end point. We need to then start again analyzing the process. Is it running as you like to have it? And then you run into the next optimization loop. So high level, no rocket science. The problem is, how do we bring basically these three disciplines of enterprise architecture, business process management, and application lifecycle management really together? And there it's getting a little bit tricky. But also here, our one process approach really helps to bring these three disciplines together. And to visualize it a bit better, well, let's introduce some personas as stakeholders for the whole process. Well, we have here, let's assume we have here our Eric enterprise architect who's doing the enterprise architecture. We have Maria who's taking care as an end-to-end process owner to really the end-to-end processes. And then we have on business side also these functional process owners, which have really the detailed knowledge on a specific process, know why need to go right and not left. So this is really the functional expert here. While Maria is more having the overall picture of the end-to-end process, she wants to make sure that it runs end-to-end perfectly smooth. And then, not to forget, on application lifecycle management side, we have our solution architect. At the end, it's a person who's really knows the details of the solutions, what are the best practices, how the processes run there. So these are basically the different personas here. Now, having a look to what it means a bit more detailed. So, and now I shrink it down again, the architecture a little bit to this capability view. It's more, that's sure, but here in this picture, to bring that together, really the capability is the glue of the whole thing. Because at the end, the enterprise architect, they take or derive out of the strategy which capabilities do I need. And then ideally, we need to be able here to, based on capability, identify which solution is needed or which solution is available. And we as SAP can also provide that information. And even then in the solution, which is the best practice or which are the best practice processes which implement these capabilities. And there we are a little bit also working on content internally that we make that happen. So this is the first bridging thing, that we have this information SAP internally. Then having a look to the end-to-end processes. Well, there, for sure, we need to have our end-to-end process hierarchy where Maria finds herself again, which is then, plugging together out of functional processes, really an end-to-end process. And then Betty, who's more for the really single functional process, the responsible one, she's taking care of, or she needs to have a functional view of the overall processes. And at the end, a little bit also like in Solution Manager, if you talk to Michael Skipper, you have an end-to-end view and you have also a functional view. And we just have then the same processes just linked into different places in the hierarchy. And then, not to forget, our solution expert who knows the solution in detail Well, now the whole thing would be easy if we think about, well, the two people on top here from the business side, they talk BPMN basically. They just want to paint process pictures, but the world in our best practice content is a bit more tricky because there we talk about solution processes, and the solution process consists of solution process flows and solution process flow diagrams, and these solution process flow diagrams are then only really this process diagram. And these two worlds we need to bring together, that at the end they just talk about this one process. And the question is, how do we do that? How do we derive this one process? The easy answer is, it's not that easy, but it's the fit to standard workshop, where we put in really the business expert and the solution expert. And well, input for them is either they have already an as-is process where they know what's going on in their system. Well, if they want to maybe optimize in a way back to standard, bringing it to standard as much as possible, well, for sure we have our SAP reference process content or best practice content. Or if a partner comes in and implements, for sure there's also the way that a partner can bring their reference processes. And out of that information, they finally design together this one process. Ideally, if you go back to standard, you start with your best practice solution process flow diagram. And if there's not all the information in the business people need, you just enrich this diagram with the additional pieces that are missing for the business guys, that they have at the end also can take this BPMN to have the same understanding of the process. And one important thing is light gray marked here is this link between the to-be process, and when we come from reference processes, we need to keep that link. And this is a very important part here, where we are also working already on, or the Signavio colleagues are already working on to get that prepared, that they can correctly handle the best practice content, because at the end, we need to keep the link of the to-be process back to our best practice content via an SAP global GUID, because only if we have that, we can later on do these nice things like kind of delta analysis. You do an upgrade to S4, the processes slightly change, and you want to understand what is the impact on my existing process. Only if we have this linkage, we can get that done again. So this is really this bridging everything together. And if we have that achieved with all the linkages in between, then also it simplifies the complete scoping of the project, because there we can either then say we come from an end-to-end process view and just select those end-to-end processes I want to put into my project, or I go from functional view, take those processes together, or procurement in this example, I want to put together in scope. And as we have all the linkage to the best practice content, it directly can take then all the scope items that we currently use and put that together as scope into a project. So this is, if we have all this linkage available, it makes life much easier. Okay, well, back to the overview slide here. Let's having a look into our one model approach here with the consistent model. So in the first part, I explained to you why we want to have this one model, why we want to, or why we need also all these entities connected to this one process. Now, it would be easy if you can just define the one process and that's it. But reality is, and this picture I think most of you will know, it's a good old focus-built process view, but it explains it perfectly, because you have the three different paces basically every process or solution run through during its lifetime. So initially you have your innovation project, which is your big transformation project lasting 12 months or longer depending on where you are. And then once this is implemented, it goes into these iterations of optimizations, business wants to have enhancements, and this you all need to be able to handle. And finally, the shortest living pace is basically the fix pace, where in case someone finds a bug, you need to be able to fix the bug, whereas in the fix pace, the expectation is that the fix pace do not really change your process. It would be really worst case that a fix would change the process, because then the process was somehow not good. But anyway, we need to be able to cover that. So at the end, we can say this one process needs to have a life cycle that covers all these three change paces. Having a look to Signavio today, well, they have revisions, but with revisions, you cannot cover exactly these life cycles. And also, you can do ugly workarounds with workflows around to copy over certain revisions of a process. Doesn't work. Having a look to Solution Manager, we had this branch concept, which was quite complex, and you could overcomplicate it if you created too many branches. But if you really have a look, and I did that in the last month, if you have a look into the details, you see that what they did there was really good, and because it fulfills all you need, but we don't want to make it that complicated. So the vision here is, and this is really vision, we need to then bring that also to architecture, but it explains you what you really need for your life cycle. So on the one hand side, you need for sure one view of what is the as is currently. So this is, let's call it production, or our main line here, reflecting really what do you have in production. And the second consistent view we need to have on the to be. What should be the process, or what is the process that is currently being implemented? So this is also a consistent view over the complete solution. But then, when it comes to design, we think there is no need to have really this complete solution view on the complete design. We can live here also with some kind of short-living feature branches. As soon as it's designed and approved, we directly move it into this development or in this project line view to have it in there. But then again, we need to be able to bring also the process from this project line into the main line. And there, it's the same rule like before, that the process and documentation of the process, it needs to follow the code or the configuration. So if you move your code and configuration from your development to production, you need to make sure that, I saw it, 11 minutes left. Process needs to follow code, one important thing. And this we can assure also then via in Cloud ALM, we also have deployment plans, releases, where we make sure that we can bundle features together. And this is exactly what's reflected here. With releases and features, you can bundle that into releases, and we need to make sure that then process and documentation and everything belonging to this one process moves over from this project line to the main line. Well, this is this innovation pace. And then, for sure, we also need to have something for the fix and enhance pace. But also there, the idea is to have really short-living feature branches, or however we call it. And at the end, as soon as they are done, they move into the main line, we are fine. And one thing not to forget, we call it here rebase, you can also call it conflict handling. That's something we definitely need, because well, assume you change something, you fix something in production, then you have to check, is the same process touched also in your project line? If yes, someone really needs to have a look and decide what to do. Well, if it's a different process, then for sure you can just rebase into your project line, you are fine. By seeing that, you can say, okay, it's a little bit like handling process and all the entities around, well, like code, maybe like a Git approach, but that's the vision, and we need to see where we end up. Okay, yes. Okay, what is our goal at the end? So we want to have really this one process as a single source of truth. All the different tools have really this same view on this one process. It needs to have an end-to-end lifecycle management. to cover the 3 paces I explained, and we need to have really one harmonized user experience. Independent from which tool you look onto the process, it needs to all be the same, and the same user experience from all different angles. Okay, and this fits into the 10 minutes, let's having a look to the integrated tool chain. So in the center we have here these 3 products, and they have core capabilities. I think I don't need to go into each and every detail here, but it's clear that this is not, well, it's maybe a center of universe, but we have definitely tools and things around we need to take care of. And there's a whole bunch of things. Well, think about, well, the readiness check. We have a readiness check for S4, which we currently implement in Cloud ALM, that you can directly reuse or directly structure your follow-up activities for simplification items, also for custom code, directly in projects of Cloud ALM. Also there we need to think on methodology-wise, how does that fit then really end-to-end? If you have a simplification item which impacts a process, we also need to take care that we have that correctly in our methodology for the Signavio side and to handle it in the process. And there are other things like, well, we have integration for test automation, for all the cloud transports. We get ATO for the public cloud S4, and we have, custom code is an important part if you think about the initiative for Clean Core, where you want to really analyze or get rid of custom code, move that better into extensions on BTP. So also this need to really be put together into one tool chain. I don't go through all these entities. Maybe the question is a little bit, where are we today? And I don't want to give you the answer. The answer you have basically in the other sessions here. We have one session on LeanIX from Oliver and Yannis. They will guide you through the capability of LeanIX, and I think they prepared a nice end-to-end demo on how this plays together with Signavio. Then we have also a session from Yannis on the Signavio part, showing all these Signavio capabilities and how this fits together with LeanIX, but also then into Cloud ALM. The Cloud ALM part, that's an easy one, because that's basically the complete implementation track here at the summit, where we have a lot of sessions. And just as one example also on this integration of the bigger universe around, it's one session from Nicola and Matthias on the Tricentis Cloud that we have. And it's released some weeks ago. It was released. And this is nicely integrated. You can do provisioning of this test automation. It's also a cloud-based test automation, and you can trigger the provisioning of it directly from Cloud ALM. They will show you there really how this works, what you can do with this test automation. And to wrap up the whole business transformation track, we will have then also one partner session where Clemens will show how Share AG is currently preparing this business transformation approach, exactly also with this tool set here for their customer, Griner.